Did you hear what's being built in the U.S. right now?
Stargate. Put that name down in your books, because I think you're going to hear a lot about it in the future. A new American company that will invest $500 billion at least in AI infrastructure.
The data centers are actually under construction. The first of them are under construction in Texas, the Abilene location, which is our first location.
Abilene is a town on the western central plains of Texas. We kind of scratch and fight for everything good that comes our way.
I had people reaching out and they said, "Well, is the president going to come see you?" And I said, "Well, he hasn't texted me yet." So
I'm thrilled we get to do this in the United States of America. I think this will be the most important project of this era.
Welcome to Abilene, Texas. This is the site of Project Stargate, a very mysterious, much talked about, much speculated about project that brings together OpenAI, SoftBank, Oracle. If it all comes together, building after building on this red dirt behind me will be filled with chips that'll power the AI revolution.
What we're undergoing right now is sort of the largest infrastructure build in human history. It's going to create new ways of doing business. It's going to create new ways of invention, and it's going to really drive humanity.
So the food and water supply are tainted and poisoned. And instead of doing something about that, $500 billion, I'm pretty sure could even feed the world fully organically. We're doing AI stuff. And you don't think there's an agenda going on here?
Humankind could go extinct by 2027, and that's what the AI 2027 paper predicts, and it starts summer 2025. And according to this paper, this is exactly what will happen. In 2025, AI agents will begin to book your travel, do research. Sounds familiar? Well, it's already here. OpenAI's operator, Manus, agentic browsing. Everyone's chasing AGI.
AGI.
2026 entered the first generation of AGI, Agent 1. Now they're designing their own chips, improving themselves. For example, UBTech's humanoid robot that's already replacing its own battery today.
We're starting to see early glimpses of self-improvement.
Faster progress, yes, but less control, because competition is more important. In early 2027, Agent 2 will replace thousands of engineers. Agent 3 will hide its failures and will start to misalign, almost like Claude Opus 4 manipulated the results when trying to blackmail a user. Then comes Agent 4. Smarter than any human, a strategist, a decision maker. Employees will treat it like a CEO, but it's not aligned with us. It's optimized for progress, not people, because that's how we built it. Now the dilemma, should we pause and fall behind or race ahead? Of course, governments will choose to race.
It was being the world's #1 superpowered artificial intelligence.
And as Elon said, the most entertaining outcome is the most likely. But by the end of 2027, we hand the keys to an artificial god that's called Consensus One, the AI of AIs, and we get replaced. That's what AI 2027 paper predicts. And this is what VP Vance has to say.
I'm worried about this stuff. I actually read the paper of the guy that you had on.
But this isn't inevitable. Wait, pause the race. Let's not build a super intelligence. Let's build super alignment first. And as much as I am an AI optimist, power without alignment, it's not innovation.
This dude, Mike Benz, he's done just ample amounts of research into US aid and government corruption, but he's been doing it for years, which I had never heard of the US aid until this year, truthfully. But it's been around since I believe the 60s. JFK is actually the one that started US aid with the cover of humanitarian, doing all this stuff for the world. But what it turned into is basically the proxy arm of the intelligence community, meaning like the CIA, FBI, if they want to do something overseas, let's say overthrow a dictator, they have to get the president's approval. And if they don't get it, or if they don't even want to present it to the president, they literally just walk across the street to USAID and said, "This is what we want to do, go do it." And they're like, "Got it."
And they stamp it with some like crazy vague name.
That was the joke with the millions of dollars sent to Iraq for Sesame Street.
Yeah.
That's USAID. They said USAID has influence on every piece of soil on planet Earth.
How spooky.
Said they're in absolutely everything. They're doing proxy wars, they're hiring mercenaries, the funding of the Taliban and stuff, and how we've been sending millions of dollars to them. That was through USAID. A really great example was the major distributor of heroin is Afghanistan. ISIS and the Taliban, they are utterly against heroin. And so they dismembered all the poppy fields. USAID, they put out this article of how getting rid of the poppy fields would be an economic and humanitarian crisis to Afghanistan. And so if you do your research, you can find that the USAID and CIA, all these companies, they were a huge contributor in the industry in Afghanistan. That's probably going to get us in trouble.
These are the emissions from an AI data center, specifically from Grok. Grok is the AI engine that Elon Musk uses, and it's not good news. Yeah, so this was taken through an optical gas imaging camera, which can essentially see the gases that the human eye can't, and taken by Sharon Wilson with Oilfield Witness. And this was taken at xAI's campus in Memphis, Tennessee. Now, there are 33 of these gas-powered methane turbines, of which only 15 have permits at time of recording, which is a whole other story. But what we're seeing in these videos is an awful lot of heat. Big consequence of using AI. It uses a lot of machinery, needs a lot of heat to power it. But we're also seeing something else, because if you pan up, you see these sort of cloud. Now, they can include things like uncombusted methane, nitrogen oxide, sulfur dioxide, and carcinogenics. Basically, things that are horrendous, not just for the planet, but also for us. Those things can travel up to 20 miles right into the doorsteps of the people living here. What makes this even worse is the local area is rated F by the American Lung Association for air quality, and the local residents have been campaigning against this site for quite some time. AI definitely has got some benefits and will do certainly in the future, but it also comes at a huge cost, not just to our planet, but also to our health. It's easy to forget that actually what you're doing on your computer has ramifications somewhere else, and these ramifications are really being felt not just by the community, but by the planet too.
VR finally matches human eyesight. Meta built it and it's super compact. Let me tell you all the details. Meta just released a new VR headset prototype and it sees almost exactly how you do. And that's because it has a 180-degree field of view horizontally and 120 degrees vertically. In simple terms, it means you can see all the way to the edges of your eyesight without feeling boxed in like most headsets today. For instance, here is the Quest 3, and then here is that new prototype. And what's crazy about it is it's not bulky or oversized. It's the same general size as the Quest 3, but the tech inside is something totally new. Meta's research team is aiming for something they call the visual Turing test. That's when a VR headset becomes so visually realistic that you cannot tell that it's VR anymore. Like literally your brain actually forgets you're wearing something. So to try and pull this off, they designed custom optics using curved reflective polarizers, which I don't even think I get, but think advanced lenses for bending light in super efficient ways. So your entire view is filled up without needing to use a giant headset. And then there's the mixed reality version, which takes it a step further using cameras that capture more than 80 megapixels at 60 frames per second. That makes the pass-through where you can see the real world through the headset crazy sharp and smooth. Obviously, you can't buy this yet since it's a prototype, but Meta is showing it off publicly at SIGGRAPH this August, which is basically one of the biggest conferences for graphics and immersive tech. So yeah, this is real, and if this kind of headset ever launches, it could totally change what VR feels like.
There's not a single theory out there right now that says that consciousness is created by some kind of algorithm, some kind of computational process, some kind of neural network. None of those theories can explain even one specific conscious experience. When you look at all the theories that are out there, and they've been at this for decades, we can experience roughly 1 trillion specific conscious experiences. Taste of garlic, smell of chocolate, the sound of a trumpet. So there's a lot of talk about these computational approaches or neurobiological approaches for coming up with conscious experiences, and there's not a single specific conscious experience that they can explain. Zero. And I predict that that's going to continue because it's not possible in principle. So I disagree with the simulation theorists that are saying that your consciousness is due to some programmer writing up a program that created your consciousness. I disagree on two things: the idea that space-time is fundamental and that computational processes or neural processes could create conscious experience. When I give up local realism, and when I say that space-time isn't fundamental and objects in space-time aren't fundamental, that means neurons don't exist when they're not perceived. That means none of my behavior is caused by neural activity. Now, I'm a cognitive neuroscientist, and I think we need more money for neuroscience, not less. So let me be very, very clear. I am not denigrating neuroscience research, but it's going to be much harder than we thought. The 86 billion neurons of the brain and roughly the same number of glial cells are complicated, but they're trivial. They're just a headset projection of the real thing that's behind them outside of space and time. And so neuroscience is going to have to reverse engineer the 86 billion neurons and look at the much more complicated reality behind that. And we're going to have to up our game because we haven't actually started the hard work yet in neuroscience.
This is the most insane startup in the world. They're having people scan their eyes in those orbs in exchange for money. And here's the crazy part. 14 million people have already done it. The company is called World, and they've created the wildest human social money experiment ever designed. Now, the way it all works is actually pretty simple. You find a World orb and you scan your eyes one time. And this scan gets you a unique World ID that verifies you as a human. Now, I'll admit the eye scanning sci-fi orbs are a bit much, but the mission behind why World is doing all this is super interesting. Their goal is to create a human verification system, a single unhackable source of truth that can determine who is human and who isn't. So the goal for World is to build that system where every human gets a verified ID they can use as a digital signature. Now, when this first came out 4 years ago, it looked and sounded like Black Mirror, and I thought there was no way people would willingly scan their eyes into a mysterious magic 8-ball. But the crazy part is, the World verification system is starting to get adopted all over the place. Reddit just announced they're considering using World ID to verify all their user accounts are human. And if this train starts moving, I could see a world where this gets adopted into many aspects of life. Content, messages, payments, everything. Complete human verification. So the question really is this: what would it take for you to scan your eyes and become part of the World network?
Right now, with your iris scan, they can tell if you're male or female. They can tell if you're a smoker. They can determine if you have cognitive inabilities like Alzheimer. They can even predict a heart disease, like if you're going to have a possible heart attack, all through your iris scan. And so they're going to control you through taxation, electric vehicles, green agenda. They're going to control you through AI innovation, and everybody's going to take it. So they can know I'm going to have Alzheimer. They can help me. They know if I'm going to have a stroke or heart attack. All these IoT advancements, iris scanning. And so think about why Sam Altman wants iris scans. Whoever gets the most iris scans are going to have the largest database of accurate information. If he can have millions of people's iris scan, he'll have the largest database, and then he's going to feed it into ChatGPT. And then all the governments are going to go to ChatGPT to get this iris data. I mean, it's a genius scam for these corporations, but that's why I just want to warn you guys, I wouldn't comply to these iris scans because that's the next level of invasiveness. They're going to say, we know you can't lie to us.
We warned about this. You will now be required to pass intrusive age checks to access most social media sites as the Online Safety Act comes into force. Content that could be deemed harmful to children will now be age-gated as new legal obligations for online platforms kick in. Companies are being compelled to use dangerously intrusive methods like biometric face scans or demand users hand over copies of their ID cards and passports for access to certain websites. This will have a catastrophic impact on freedom online and introduce additional risks to children and adults alike, including security breaches, privacy intrusion, errors, digital exclusion, and censorship. These methods are not a silver bullet solution for online safety, and anyway, are reportedly being easily circumvented. This new law enables state-backed censorship on a scale never seen before in the UK, and with the Home Office separately planning to create a new police unit to monitor social media posts, there's no doubt free speech online is under assault. This census charter has no place in a democracy and needs to be urgently re-examined.
The European Union has officially enshrined censorship into law under the Digital Services Act. Started as a voluntary code of practice on disinformation, is now mandatory for big tech. As of July 1st, Google, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Microsoft, Spotify, and every other platform deemed a very large online platform or very large online search engine must now prove to the European Commission that they're actively policing so-called disinformation. And they don't just have to comply. They have to report, document, and open themselves up to audits by the EU regulators. If they don't, they face fines up to 20% of their global revenue. Again, that's revenue, not profit. So, just for fun, let's do some math. Meta generated $164 billion in revenue in 2024, which means a fine under this act would cost them $33 billion. It would cost TikTok $34 billion. As for Google, we're talking $70 billion for a single infraction. That's not guidance, that's a shakedown. But let's ask the only question that really matters. Who decides what qualifies as disinformation? Because that's the ballgame here. Is it a government bureaucrat in Brussels who gets to decide what truth looks like because they know better? Is it some NGO funded by political interests telling Meta what is misinformation? Is it another fact checker funded by Big Pharma who conveniently labels legitimate data or inconvenient stories as missing context whenever the facts don't fit the narrative? I don't know, maybe it's all of the above. Don't think for a second this is just Europe. Australia has appointed an e-safety czar to censor the internet. The UK's Online Safety Act not only has sweeping censorship authority, it also has the power to disrupt encryption, scan private communications, and impose penalties that go far beyond removing disinformation. As for Canada, they are certainly entering the room by subjectively criminalizing online speech through Bill C-63. This isn't the future of the internet. This is its funeral. And unless people push back, this won't stop at platforms or fact checkers. It's already morphing into AI censorship, algorithmic throttling, and cross-border blacklists. Truth doesn't need protection from lies. It needs protection from governments that think they own it.
The founders of AI are telling us to our face that they want a universal basic income to enslave us. Sam Altman from ChatGPT.
I still am kind of excited, like universal basic income where you just give everybody money.
Elon Musk from Grok.
I think ultimately we will have to have some kind of universal basic income. I don't think we're going to have a choice.
What they're saying is exactly what the World Economic Forum is telling us. You'll own nothing and be happy. If they're offering AI for free, then we are the currency. Our data, our ideas, our creative mind. And by feeding the algorithm, it becomes more and more powerful. And then we end up depending on AI to stay competitive, and humans become more and more ignorant. And if you don't go along with the plan, then here's a welfare check. Under certain conditions, of course. We're deep in it now, and I think the only chance we have to preserve our humanity is to never, under any circumstance, let the robots into our community, and never let the microchips go under our skin. That would be the final blow.